Welcome to Agribusiness Matters. My name is Venki Ramachandran. This is a new experiment to have very long and more open conversations with agritech founders. I'm temporarily calling it in a nutshell uh, because the one fundamental reason why agribusiness matters exists is I aspire to become a meditation retreat where founders can discuss and reflect on the kind of questions and the kind of problems that they are working on. So in that regard, I thought it would be good to have these series of conversations with founders who are in various walks of life and from an agritech perspective. So on that front, I'm very excited to really to do this kind of a special episode with Sreeram, one of the most rarest agritech founders who found a successful exit. And Sriram, and I recently met Sriram at an event, and I'll talk about that event as well. And it's something I've been wanting to have this conversation for a long time. So thank you, Sriram, for agreeing to come on to this conversation. I'm calling that conversation an art of happy exit, because today agritech is one such domain that the exit itself is such a rare thing, and people talk about it in an exalted terms, and many times many people also don't understand what all it entails from a founder's perspective to look at exit very closely. So this conversation is going to be focusing on the individual, the founder, and how they went through the entire thing. So thank you very much, Sriram, for agreeing to do this. I really want to kickstart with a very innocuous question, probably. Who is Sriram?
Thank you, Venki, for the quick introduction. And I read your blogs a lot, and it matters a lot for agripreneurs. And I think you need to keep doing it for encouraging more people, agripreneurs, to come into this ecosystem. I think the people with more IQ and common sense come to in this sector. It would address all the gaps in this particular sector. So with that, who is Sreeram? Sreeram is just a guy who is just born in Pedanandipadu, a village in Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh. Born and brought up in between the chili and cotton fields, and became an engineer and started thinking, why can't the advanced technology be applied to these farms where I have grown? We see a lot of technology advancements across the globe, but in my village and in my fields, it's the same thing since I was born. And so someone has to change that practices, and I thought, why Sreeram can't be that person?
Nice. I really want to talk about the first meeting that I really saw you closely. Although I've seen you briefly here and there, when I first met you in the Omnivore event, I almost sensed a very nice, completely dispassionate founder who has completely, moved past the phase of I've exited. And that phase was very evident in the way you were carrying yourself, and you spoke. You kind of went to the sides and you spoke about when Mark introduced you. You went to the corner and spoke, and then the way you were just carrying yourself, I could clearly see that here was a founder who's post the exit phase. So what really, and later when we met, you also spoke about that you almost had depression for 10 days after that exit happened. What can you maybe if it's okay to maybe go a little bit into what really happened once when you first mentally process that, okay, now I'm no longer part of this. Can you look at that maybe and share something with us?
Yeah. So when we raised our Series B funding, that time itself the exit pattern was defined, but so I know, like, I need to exit this company at some point of time because of there is a strategy going to come into the company. But I say, like, I was a guy who was not running the company just for exit. It's not that okay, anyway, I'll exit this business, and I just want to make my buck and go away. My intention was the vision and the mission of the company has to stay intact, and the purpose of starting this company. And my wishes were the company has to grow bigger than what it is right now and be a global leader in aquaculture technology space. That's my intention of that. So when the negotiations happened and the acquisition talks happened, I had to kind of prepare myself that that I need to exit this business. So then the whole intention was, so there is a lot of attachment to the company that we built and the people and the customers. So then I was thinking, what will happen to this? Will the next player take care of the customers? He will take care of the employees, and will he carry the grand vision of the company? These were the things revolving in my mind. And so as an engineer, you want to perfect things quickly. The mindset of an engineer is to not get satisfied, content with what we have built. We want to build more technology, acquire more geographies and stuff. That's the passion of an engineer. So I was an engineer CEO rather than a MBA CEO who talks about numbers and stuff. So my thing is to build more solutions to farmers to solve every problem that a farmer is facing. So, and that way I thought, and so it was a little bit of a depression for a week and so. And finally, I took a break and for a couple of days, and I started reading Bhagavad Gita. That is when I realized that whatever it is doesn't belong to you. So you're just a karma, and you're just doing your wholehearted service to the nation or to the company. And when time comes, you need to disassociate yourself, and the God has given maybe these are the steps that God want to take a different path. And probably I thought there are some other industries which really need attention, and that is where I can use my knowledge or the skills that I have. And when I reflected back, I also felt that I'm moving into a comfort zone of things, and so I'm not actually serving. The reason that I started Eruvaka was to serve, to develop solutions for my local farmers, and so the actual cotton and chili farmers. And I went somewhere, I took a deviation and shortcut of going into aquaculture, but the core problems remain the same. And I thought like maybe God has wanted me to travel in a different destiny, different route, and solve the problems there. So that has taken a lot of burden out of me to say that, okay, it's the right time to exit. I need to dissociate myself from the existing Eruvaka setup and move on to new things.
Yeah, and that I think that dissociated self was very much visible when I actually met you there, and it was quite refreshing for me to see that. You nicely said something that I am not an MBA CEO, I'm more an engineer CEO, and that's very interesting because for to ask any CEO and you say that what exit do you have in mind, sometimes can be a very offensive question also. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about exit in mind? What are you talking about? Like, I want to, I am doing this something for long, right? And that's a common mindset with I'm assuming with investors or with anyone. I mean, more than investors, investors have a different value proposition, but to be more specifically for founders who are looking at a long term. And especially in a domain like agriculture, where the issues are very complex and things take time to change.
Yes.
So, given all of that, and given that exit itself is some kind of an abstract notion, because sometimes like you were just been talking, what you were just saying that before that you had a call, right, with a chairman of a shrimp firm, right? So given that exit is abstract, and in some sense one doesn't know whether the exit has happened or not, right? In that case, when did exit really become very real there? And more in specifically, what does exit really now mean to you, now that you look back in hindsight?
Yeah, exit gave me a freedom to explore a lot of opportunities.
Mm.
So when I was building Eruvaka, I'm more like thinking of how do we build solutions to solve some problems.
Mm.
That has been my mindset. Being part of Eruvaka, I had some commitments to confine to aquaculture and grow the business. Because that is the ecosystem I am in. Like we have investors in place, we have strategic in place, we have employees in that particular thing. So I had more responsibility to grow that business and solve that particular sector. So what I realized is, say I have solved all the, say you have two type of solutions. One is good to have solution and one is like a must have solution. So I figured out like, so in the short span of 10 years, I could
10 years.
I could figure out the most must-have problems and solved all these must-have problems in aquaculture. And I thought like, yeah, it's like right now there is a strong team which is built, and they too have the same culture of solving aquaculture problems, and they can take over that and do incremental changes and build some new solutions, adapt to the new farmings, and they can carry that and they can build those solutions. But I think my presence is needed where there are deep-rooted problems which needs to be addressed.
Mm.
And as I look back now, I have multiple ideas to execute, and I need to now. When I look now from the last 6 months to 8 months, I see that there are a lot of pressing problems, and I'm too overwhelmed. Like which path to choose now?
Mm. You have now the luxury of choosing.
Yeah, choosing the problem and
Yeah.
see how I can build solutions for those particular problems.
But Sriram, tell me one thing. You were saying that 10 years is it's a short period of time. It's a naive question, probably. Why it takes 10 years? Because it's something I also keep, I keep talking about it to many people, who was outside agriculture. I tell them that agriculture is one such domain where your default pattern is to think long term.
Yeah,
There's no question of a 2-year exit or 3-year exit or 4-year exit. It's a question of
exactly.
it is a domain that is uh, you know by its very nature, by its very intrinsic nature, it is long term. But I wonder how you would probably explain this, considering maybe specifically to Eruvaka's context here, right? What took you 10 years? What kind of, and you briefly alluded upon it in the Omnivore event where you said that, we kept tinkering at solutions. It took time. But if we were to now talk about it dispassionately from an exited mind and reflect on what took that long, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things here in agriculture. Say we started with first one product. So we know there are problems in aquaculture. We didn't have much of aquaculture knowledge, but I know the mind being raised in the farmlands. I know the mindset of the farmer.
Mm.
He is the biggest entrepreneur. He is the biggest risk taker. And the good thing is like, just to deviate from this particular point, when 2012, I didn't like, say, in these forums or everywhere, they used to call agriculture as an impact investment, social investment.
Mm.
Being a farmer and a farmer's son, I didn't like those terms of impact.
Mm-hmm.
Calling the farmer as looking down on the farmer. So we need to raise the head for the farmer. He is the biggest risk taker, and we need to appraise him rather than being concerned about him. And so our mindset has to be that it's not. So we developed the technology initially. So we developed some product initially. Figured out that it's okay to have a product, but there are more pressing problems. So to understand the exact problems and say initially we thought that this product would be hit, but it was the first product was not so much hit. So to closely look at the problems and to understand what to build, it took us like 2 years. Okay, and then we figured out what is the real problem that these guys are facing, and we developed a solution for it. And then that took a development of 1 year.
Okay. You're talking about the one that the dissolved oxygen wala one.
Yeah, the dissolved oxygen. We spent some time on it. Figured out it's a good to have product, but it doesn't really solve the deep problems in in aquaculture. Then we focused on like feeding the shrimp, which is the major challenge for the farmers. So that is where excited me as well. The first product as an engineer was also not technologically complicated. It's a simple product. And as an engineer, the feeding the shrimp also excited me. It's a hard problem to solve. And it can't be replicated so fast. So even like we are here for like 7-8 years, we don't have too much of a strong competition. It's not an easy problem to solve. So that excited me that, okay, if there are 2 advantages, I have a hard problem to solve, and it also solves the real problem for the farmer. So I got a good team of engineers who were passionate about solving this problem, and we had the initial solution ready within like 8 to 9 months. And then we need to try this in the actual farmer ponds. So aquaculture being high risky, like none of the farmers would be, so we would not be, so none of the farmers would give the ponds for experimentation. So we did one trial, then it was a disaster. The first trial was a disaster.
I see.
So then we set up our own ponds, and each cycle of experiment is like 4 months. And you can only do, at least in aquaculture, we are lucky, we can do at least 3 cycles of experiments every year. With other crops, it's like maybe just 1 shot that they can do. And good thing
that extends the risk horizon also, because it's much more when compared to the traditional cropping cycles also.
Yeah, exactly. Say if someone wants to develop some, say if I want to develop some technology for chilies, it's only like 1 narrow window of harvesting that we have of 2 to 3 months. And again, I need to wait for next season to do anything. So we spent 2 years experimenting the technology in our own farms. So after 2 years, we figured out that I was comfortable that as a farmer, we have a solution ready which can be given to other farmers. Means my intention was I am not commercially hungry to deploy these and make money. My thing is to build a perfect product which solves the real problem, which gives the real value to the customer. So for me to believe in self that the solution worked in my farm, it took 2 years. So you are done with what, 3 + 2, 5 years to get the comfort that this solution can be sold to the farmers. So then next 1 year we spent on beta trials. So we didn't expand too much. We just expanded to some 20 ponds to carefully watch, are we giving the real value to the customer or not? So then the next year we went to 100 farms. That is when we got an acceptance ratio of around 75%. Then we decided to take it commercial, and So that is from when the revenue started multiplying. It's almost like 100% year-on-year growth for the last 4 years.
Interesting. No, it's a follow-up question to this is, see, typically, I have written a lot about this in my newsletter also, that venture capital is some kind of a jet fuel. And I've always found it very difficult to understand that, given how can venture capital in a kind of agricultural domain, which works very long term, how can that really accelerate and aid it in growth, right? In terms of investing money, if it is for the business in the kind of a domain, kind of agriculture, how does it that? So, I'm sure many founders will also have this question in terms of, given this kind of mindset you are talking about, right? That it takes like even 3 + 2 years to even test it for your farm. How do you convince investors that these things take time? Like typically for agri-tech focused investors, some of them may be very easy to understand. They know that the kind of thing. But when you're talking about, say, an outside investor, how do you typically tend to communicate these things in terms of like these things take time to do?
Yeah, maybe I was lucky to have Omnivore on board. Since it's a dedicated agritech fund, they understood the nuances of. They also, after a while, understood that agritech investments take time to mature, and so they were very supportive in terms of me getting there. So I think in venture capital, it's all right now. It's all about after you raise Series A, the whole focus is on when do we
And it's the next rise.
increase the valuation and raise Series B, Series C, and all those things.
Correct.
But as a company, the stance that I took was after raising Series A and realized that it's going to take time to build these things. So whether the decision I had to take is whether to raise Series B or to build a product. So after we burnt our fingers and little bit of burnt money, I realized that with the little money that we have, my intention was to utilize that money to build a solid product and then raise the investment rather than just focusing on cooking up something and raise the Series B round.
So I think that was a bold choice in hindsight, probably.
Yeah, so we could, means luckily it worked out well because so by the time we had product, our product was ready, we could sustain the funds till our product was ready. And then so Nutreco liked our product and they came as a strategic investment in 2018 as they did the Series B round.
Yeah, which also made it easier, in the acquisition, I think, given that they are already in that business. Yeah. No, to go back to the founder as in his role in exit, one South Indian filmmaker, he once told in an interview that in order to become a good director, he had to become first a good actor. And like he spent many years becoming first a good actor so that he could make money to become to put money on his own projects and become a good director. And I see somewhat similar in entrepreneurs' case also, that oftentimes one looks at, when one looking at a longer horizon, one has to make smaller bets and then look at the longer picture. And it was interesting for me when I read your Forbes story that you were mentioning in that that you were planning to go to US and study agricultural robotics before while the story is on Eruvaka. And now that we know that after this exit you're looking at agriculture robotics very closely, I want to get a sense of how do you approach it from the longer term. So did you approach Eruvaka from the sense that, okay, this is a smaller testing ground to test smaller problems so that I become ready to solve bigger more tougher problems like agriculture robotics, or were they two different at the very start? How was your mindset to, I mean, it's like asking a marathon runner, how does he plan for a 22-kilometer ride or a 42-kilometer ride? I mean, if you want to go the full marathon. Yeah.
Okay. So entrepreneurship was not in my mind at all. Okay. I, after 2 years working at Centillium Communications, which was into the semiconductor design, so my passion is all about robotics. I wanted to study robotics first in Netherlands in Wageningen University, and I applied for 2 times in there and in some universities in Europe. I couldn't get it, and then I tried for 1 year in US. So 3 years is gone, and I couldn't get admission. Probably I didn't write the SOPs clearly. Being an electrical engineer and applying for an agritech course, probably somehow I didn't get the admission. So at the age of around, like after working for 6 years, at the age of 27, I wanted to see, like I wanted to get out and at least start building a solution. And then I wanted to give it a try. Since I don't know much about investments or venture capital and stuff. So with the little bit savings that I have and with some support from family and friends, I wanted to try to build a solution for 3 years. If it works out for the 3 years, means I want to try it full time, not like on a part-time basis. Give it a full-time try. If it works out, maybe by age of 30, I want to decide whether I want to continue that business or I come back to work. So then I started exploring this space and figured out that with the limited knowledge and limited financial resources I have at that point of time, agri-robotics, the time it takes to build those stuff and for me to sustain, it would take time. And then the other reason also was, then I came across this aquaculture space. Then when I saw in aquaculture, they were making like around like 10 lakhs per year productivity per each acre. And in cotton and chili, cotton, they usually make some 50, 60 to 40, 50,000 at that point of time. And chilies, it was like 1.5 lakh per acre. And so that I had to make that decision, like, let me solve something aquaculture. And I also realized that everything is happening on water. And it's all like too much of guesswork that these guys were doing in aquaculture. So a couple of things. One is I took a simpler path of choosing aquaculture, which was a little bit less risky. And I also felt that even if I don't have a solution, these guys have money to buy these technology solutions. That is how I got into aquaculture. So then I felt that it's a destiny that I got into aquaculture, and now I can continue doing something in the chili and cotton space.
Which is where you were born with.
Yeah. Otherwise, if I would have got into chili cotton at that point of time, I would have died and got into job again. So sometimes we need to accept destiny and enjoy
it. Yeah. So in what ways now, compared to how you were earlier looking at, studying robotics and looking at the chili and cotton, the kind of problems in that specific value chain, vis-a-vis now after this brief stint in aquaculture, a brief stint of 10 years in aquaculture, what has shifted in how you're seeing the problem?
Yeah, I think I think the major is the labor shortage, and the labor problems are more worse compared to that point of time. And the amount of money that the farmer makes has also, the margins have also squeezed these days. So So having traveled so far, like having solved some problems in aquaculture space, so now this gave me a good idea of how to look the problem in a holistic manner than rather than just looking at as a robotic solution. Means, so it's not just about robotics. How do we decrease the input costs across those culture cycle? And
it should be more challenging for cotton than chili.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, decreasing input costs is a much more challenging problem. I guess, in terms of tackling it per se there. So now to come back to the question of exit per se. So typically, when the common discourse about any exit is only focused on the financial side of exit, right? In terms of whether there is a good multiple issue, and then when did the investors get a good rate, or did you leave it in a way where it makes it extremely financially profitable for the founders and that. But often, what is not discovered or what is not talked about is the non-financial side, right? Which involves how do you deal with your team, what kind of way communication you want to do it with them, and what are the other of course, and also the kind of customers, and how do you communicate with them, what kind of relationships you had with them, and how do you process that. So maybe for somebody for entrepreneurs who are watching this this video, I would maybe ask you to throw some light on the non-financial side of exit that one probably has to think about, and then we'll get into specifics per se. But I thought maybe it'll be worthwhile to see the non-financial side a little more closely, given that there is so much of focus on the financial side of things, typically as in media houses as they would like to do.
Things they just like financial side. So we left the company in a very healthy financial balance sheet, and so nothing to be worried about it. So the most important thing was first was the team which was working with me. I wanted to get that comfort that Nutreco wants to nurture them and grow them rather than cutting off them. So that point was very well addressed. They were also very clear that so we value the people and we don't want to create any disturbance in the team. So that was one good thing, that I could get that comfort. So once I got that comfort from Nutreco, it was I could also comfortably go to my team that I'm exiting this business, but nothing except me, no one else is going to leave this company. And it's also that they also will have like bright future kind of in Eruvaka, since it is not some financial investor who is acquiring the company. It's a company which knows the DNA of the company, and which also has a vision for growing the business or growing the company, carrying the vision of the company. So these two things were a good comfort for me to kind of articulate to my team on what they would be doing. So it is the rarest thing. It's a good thing in my case. In some case, a lot of exits where you see like a lot of news, like laying off people, cutting down the businesses and stuff. None of those sort has happened with me, with Eruvaaka. So that was one good thing. And the second thing was on customers. How do we take? So will we give the same vision of the Eruvaaka to the same support that we were giving to the customers, because they were the ones who trusted us and came on board. And Nutreco was also clear that they want to increase the business, grow the business more, provide more value to the customers. So that was also nothing for me to worry about. And the third thing is, like, there are a lot of stakeholders, like vendors who supplied to this equipment for us. So all those vendors were also retained, so that So they have planned their supply chains, their manufacturing based on our volumes and our orders. So even vendors were also taken care of. So I felt that there is uh, nothing much like, I thought that the whole process is smooth. Means these are the three main things that I wanted. So which happened, and I'm comfortably means. So when we leave some place, we need to leave it in a clean manner rather than doing a mess up. So I felt that it's not about financially. Say financially we may take it, but my whole priority since the starting of my company and my life was to value the relationships that we have built over a period of time. So once I'm clear with all these three things, I am fine moving out.
Yeah, I think valuing the relationship is extremely critical, and that's which brings me to the further question of in your mind. And I know you talked about that it was destiny to exit, but now when you look back, what do you think, or when is the right time to exit the business, right? Because typically when I read stories of entrepreneurs reflecting on their exit strategies, right? There's a friend of mine called Srikrishna has written a lovely book called The Art of Happy Exit. And it's a good book which really looks into various stories of how entrepreneurs have navigated that exit journey. Okay. In that, one of the entrepreneurs tell that they reflect back that saying that I never had an end game about this business in mind. So that was it became like a difficult for me to kind of navigate the exit as a mental step also process. So from your perspective, I want to hear when is the right time to exit, and I'm assuming that you didn't have an end game in mind when you started Eruvaka probably, or would it have been different in you how you approached it had you had an end game right when you started the entire business in 2011 on?
Yeah, I think I never thought of an exit till I exited. My thing was like whether I'm there in this business or not, let this company thrive is my objective. So I was clear in that perspective. But for certain reasons and certain things we don't know. Say sometimes I also feel that exit timing is a destiny. As they say, like you can't time stock markets or stuff. So so none of so I don't plan too much. so I take things for granted. So
no, I'm just asking from a new entrepreneur's perspective, right? From somebody who's just now building the business. What are the things that they need to cultivate in their mind to have a good end game in mind, right? Which is very healthy one. I mean that people today, it's like much like people don't talk about death, right? Because they see death as some kind of in our cultures we don't talk about death so often, so comfortably, right? Because we have a certain views there. But I can equate the same with case of exit also, right? Yes. We don't have a healthy relationship with exit also. So in that case, how can founders really orient their mind to think about exit as a process? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, again, it comes to Gita itself. So the way that we need to start building businesses is like, say, we see I'm the founder, I am the grand visionary, except me, nothing. Only I can run this business and stuff. I think it's better that we bring we before I when starting the business itself. And build the team and delegate the stuff so that the things become independent and bring it to a stage where the company grows without much involvement of the founder. Say, as long as the founder is there, we can keep running the business, we can continue the vision of the company, grow the business. But at the same side, build a succession plan, build a succession in the team itself so that the team can make their own independent decisions. And the whole thing is whether the founder is there or not, but the whole purpose of the company should be there for long term. So if we build that, I think that is what the founders means. That's my message to the new founders, rather than thinking too much about the financials or stuff. Say when we started the company, I didn't aim that at least we build a business which can have a top line of 100 crores. But say our core focus was on solving the problem. The purpose is being rooted, deep rooted into the culture of the company and the people. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there some kind of a benchmark or mental model of what is the right time from the company's growth perspective in terms of saying, like, I mean, you just mentioned for you, you've crossed 100 crores, but from a company's overall operational and from health perspective, do you have some kind of, now that you look back in hindsight, do you have some kind of thumbnail of, okay, like when this company has this kind of level of operational maturity or this level of financial growth, then that is a good time to think about exit, or do you have some kind of a benchmark in mind?
Yeah, I think say once the system, once the team and systems are in place, and if the role of entrepreneur or the founder is, say, if you feel that you're no longer needed for this, utilize, means like every founder has their own strengths. If the company needs a different set of strengths to grow the business further, and that is when I think the founders can look back and see, like, me being there, is it just creating, means are we creating the right value for myself and the company? So that is where one can think of. Means we have like a shorter life on this, as you clearly said, before death we have a short life on this planet. So my thought process is, how do we add more value to this planet, rather than getting into a comfort zone? So that is where entrepreneurs can evaluate themselves year on year.
Yeah,
They're really required in this business, or they can move out and do something else and create way for someone else.
beautiful. No, coming to specifically, in the statement that was released by the CEO of Nutreco, he mentioned that the most valuable asset is Sreeram, who's built the team and there. So how was it for them to accept the fact that you're going to be your path is different and company's path is different? How did that transition happen in a very smoothly and harmonious way?
Say like I could say we have developed some certain set of products, but I also communicated to them, like, say if I was running the business, and these were some of the other problems that I observed, and these could be the probable solutions which can be implemented to which can be added to the product portfolio of the company. So even though I was going out of the business, but I communicated what my plans were, and so that they can take it up and they can realign to the business needs and start developing them.
In other words, you're saying that I gave them the compass, so now they can still further sail ahead.
Yes.
Nice. Thank you. I think this is very, I can see that you're not somebody who is more open to talking about things and more the kind of person. You're kind of the person who gets things done. So that said, I'm so happy you came down to speak with us and share your valuable experiences. Robotics is again a sector that I'm deeply fascinated with, and I have done some brief deep dives, and I realize that given the experience that you are now bringing onto the table, I think it will be a fascinating domain to look into to kind of addressing the cotton's challenges, or be it the chili's challenges in terms of there. So I really wish you wonderful good luck in terms of tackling this problem and also creating much more meaningful impact to the ecosystem, to the farmers, and I really, it was wonderful talking to you, Srinath. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Venki.
Thank
It's
you.
pleasure, and probably I need to prepare myself for next 25 years.
As long as we are able to laugh about it, I think we are in good term.
Yes. So,
Yeah, as long as we're able to laugh that, okay, next 25 years, let's work this problem and figure out. Yeah. So I may God give the the good strength and resilience for you to plunge into the next 25 years and crack this problem, and I'm eager to stay in touch and keep listening to what your been discoveries there, and yeah, let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Venki.